All right, today we are diving deep into a film so steamy it didn't just heat up the box office, it basically revived an entire genre and set the template for the erotic thriller as we know it. We are, of course, talking about 1981's neo-noir masterpiece, Body Heat. Right out of the gate, the dialogue just grabs you. It's got that perfect pulpy style. When William Hurt's character Ned Racine says this to Kathleen Turner's Maddie Walker, wow. It's more than just a slick pickup line, you know? It's a warning. It tells you everything you need to know about a world where desire is both the goal and the most dangerous weapon you can find. But here's the thing. Not everyone was on board at first. In fact, it was super divisive. You had critics like the great Roger Ebert calling it a masterpiece, an instant classic. And then on the complete other side, you had someone like the legendary Pauline Kael who basically thought it was a joke that made her cringe. So how could one movie get such a wildly opposite reactions? Seriously, how did one movie become a box office smash, a critical war zone, and a topic for film school essays all at the same time? Well, that's exactly what we're going to get into today. First off, let's talk about the surface level stuff, the thing that got butts in seats in 1981. At its core, Body Heat was just a really effective thriller dripping with Florida atmosphere. The setup is a total classic, and for good reason. You've got Ned, this kind of lazy but charming lawyer. He gets completely tangled up with the mysterious Maddie Walker, who's stuck in a marriage to a rich, powerful guy. Their affair? Well, it gets so intense they start plotting to kill her husband. And as you can probably guess, things get complicated fast. And people absolutely loved it. The movie was made for about $9 million, but it pulled in over $24 million at the box office. This wasn't some niche art house film, it was a genuine hit that totally captured the public's imagination. And this comment from a Reddit user just nails why it worked so well. People went in thinking they were getting, a cheesy erotic thriller, but what they got was something so much smarter, so much deeper. The mood, the performances, it just elevated the whole thing into a completely different league. So what was that something different? Well, it was the shot in the arm that a classic Hollywood genre desperately needed. To really get Body Heat, you have to understand the history it's playing with. Film noir. You know the look, right? Deep shadows, cynical private eyes, dangerous women, the iconic femme fatale, and this heavy feeling of doom and gloom. It was huge back in the 40s and 50s, but by the 80s, the genre had kind of faded away. Now, Body Heat is what we call neo-noir. It's taking all those classic ingredients but giving them a modern spin. So the stark black and white is gone, replaced by this lush, sweaty color. The old production code that limited what you could show? Out the window. This allowed for way more explicit sex and violence. But the biggest difference is that neo-noir knows what it is. It's self-aware. It's winking at the audience, saying, yeah, we've seen those old movies too. And that self-awareness is exactly what makes the film so brilliant. It's not just copying the old stuff, it's commenting on it. Back in the day, a lot of people pointed out that the plot is incredibly similar to the 1944 noir classic Double Indemnity. I mean, both are about an insurance scam and a murder plot. So, was the director, Lawrence Kasdan, just doing a lazy remake in color for his first film? Absolutely not. See, as scholars like Christelle Mori point out, films like Body Heat aren't just telling a story. They're actually engaging with the film theory about the old movies. These filmmakers had read the books, they'd studied the genre, they were basically putting film criticism on screen. And the biggest clue is the main character. In old school noir, you usually have the guy's voiceover, right? He's telling you his side of the story, making himself out to be the victim of this manipulative woman. Body Heat gets rid of that completely. We're not in Ned's head. Instead, the camera just shows us, objectively, that he's not some poor guy caught up in things. He's kind of dumb. He's easily played. He's what one critic called a dumb lug, a total pawn who doesn't even see the strings. So, how did they create that incredible atmosphere, that suffocating heat that makes you feel like you're sweating right along with the characters? Well, it was all down to some incredible filmmaking magic. You're gonna love this. This is a great little secret from the cinematographer Richard H. Kline. You know that signature oppressive heat you feel through the whole movie? Most of it was fake. They were filming in awful, sometimes freezing cold weather. That heat is pure cinema, created with lights, filters, and lab work. And it was a meticulous process. Kline was using special filters to make the image feel hazy, adding warm gels to the lights on set, and even going to the film lab himself to mix the colors during the printing process. He tested every single lens for its unique color. And famously, he had the crew constantly spraying the actors with water to make them look sweaty, even when they were shivering. Now that is commitment to the craft. So all this incredible detail, this atmosphere, it all leads to the final layer of the movie. What was it all for? For a lot of academics, Body Heat was about the anxieties of the era it was made in. I mean, think about it. You've got Maddie Walker, who is one of the smartest, most powerful, and ruthless femme fatales ever put on screen. And playing opposite her is Ned Racine, who is just completely and totally out of his depth. That imbalance, that huge contrast, wasn't an accident. It was saying something about the culture of the early 80s. And according to scholars like Crystal Mori, the rise of this dumb lug hero in Neo-Noir was a cinematic reaction to the huge social changes brought on by second-wave feminism. In this view, these films are staging a kind of crisis of masculinity, where the male characters suddenly seem powerless against these newly confident and liberated women. So, after peeling back all those layers, where does that leave us? What is the real, lasting legacy of Body Heat in the grand scheme of things? You can draw a straight line through the history of the erotic thriller. You start with Double Indemnity in 1944, that's the blueprint. Then, in 1981, Body Heat comes along, digs it up and makes it modern, sexy, and smart. And in doing so, it paved the way for the massive blockbusters of the 90s like Basic Instinct. Without Body Heat, the 90s thriller craze probably wouldn't have happened. So why does Body Heat still matter so much? Because it did way more than just one thing. It brought a genre back from the dead. It launched Kathleen Turner into superstardom as an all-time great femme fatale. It proved a movie could be a hit while also being a clever comment on film history. And it was a perfect time capsule for the cultural anxieties of its moment. Which leaves us with this one last fascinating question to chew on. Is this movie a loving, warm tribute to the classic film noirs of the past? Or is it actually a sharp, cynical critique of that genre and the flawed men at its center? The fact that you can still argue about it today, well, that's probably the biggest sign of its brilliance.